it's not a deal if both people are not the winners. This is how I visualize the thing. So there's no such a thing like I won a deal. No, you didn't. Because if you won, means that someone lost. And if someone lost, this deal is not good.
Welcome to a new episode of Deal, your podcast for IT and software sales. Thanks for listening in last week and thanks for coming back this week to listen, learn and grow your sales skills. My name is Iji Shikla and I'm your host and guide that shows you the way through the jungle of tech sales. If you're listening to a sales podcast like this, you're likely looking for tips and tricks to improve your sales game, right? And those tips usually come from who? Exactly from other salespeople and sales experts. But what if you would shift your perspective? What if we would shift the perspective and instead of hearing salespeople speaking about best practices, what if you would hear from an actual buyer how he's buying, procuring and deciding which software and IT product and solution to buy? And in today's episode, we are doing this shift looking on the other side of the sales equation, namely the buyer's perspective. What if you could hear from an actual decision maker how tech is bought? Well, that would be amazing. And that's why today I'm super thrilled to be joined not by another sales expert, but by an actual customer and decision maker. He is the former vice president of technology at MediaMarkt Saturn. He has founded, grown, successfully sold multiple tech companies, startups, and today he's the director of customer relations and sales at the IT daughter company of Rewe and responsible for innovating the tech landscape of the Rewe group across Europe. Bruno, first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Yuri. Thank you very much. And I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, this is unique. I think I am now over 210 episodes. If this episode will come out, you will be probably like 210, 215. I never had an actual person that is buying something, always people that are actually selling something. So I think you can definitely add some value to the listeners. Let's kickstart. I mean, we're speaking about sales, right? So you're on the buyer side. I'm more on the sales side. I'm now in the role as an enterprise account executive at MongoDB. When you think about sales and all the, let's say, buying encounters and sales encounters that you maybe had with salespeople in buying processes, what was the most kind of memorable sales encounter with some sales rep that you have experienced as a potential buyer?
Yeah, I remember one episode, like in the past, when in one of my companies, that I was really trying to figure out, like in one of our systems, a real financial forecasting system. Like we were trying to do that on our own, and we were just taking too long, and it was not really working the way we really wanted it to be. And I remember that I had recently joined the LinkedIn platform, right? And it was like back in 2010 or something, so like a while ago. And I remember after liking some posts, all of a sudden someone just writes me and saying, "Are you having problems with financial forecasting?" And I was like, "What? Like, how does he even know about that?" But after like we talked, and then he told me that he just saw that actually that I just liked one specific content, and he just came to me and talked about it. And actually, that was really interesting because one of the things that I really learned from that day is that he was not selling me any kind of features. He was actually selling me a solution to the problem that I was looking for. So he really understood from what we started talking about what were exactly my problems. And therefore, we started like developing on the problems, on possible solutions, what could work out, and what I was actually looking for. And then we came out to be a very good, like successful partners because in the end, he just said, "Okay, I might have something that might be very good for your company." And then we ended up like closing deals, and that was like a very something that kind of really popped out in my mind because it was exactly what I was looking for, and he just approached me like in the right timing ever. and that was pretty good, I would say.
So that was 2010. So gosh, it's like 14 years ago. Maybe that was like the first LinkedIn sales outreach ever. Probably it sounds like ages, but interesting. You mentioned like that this person specifically was doing something different than others. Instead of kind of pitching features or explaining features, the person was able to show you or explain you the problems or show you a solution for a problem. Can you explain how did the person did this? Like, what was the behavior? Was it more questions? Was the things that the person said? Can you walk us through?
Yeah,
Can you
of course.
remember?
I think one of the things that he did that I really liked is that he knew the audience that he was going for. Like, even though I have like a technical background and I'm very much into the ins and outs, like for all the technical details, he knew that I was basically I was the CEO of the company. I was responsible for like driving the company forward, and we had like a very good talk about exactly that. So he did not come to me saying, "Oh, my software does this, this, and that," like all this feature list that we usually receive. He did not come with that. He first tried to understand from my side what was the kind of problem that I was having. And then together we came out with a specific solution to what would be perfect for my solution. So for my idea of what I really wanted to have. So I was saying, oh, if this could do that, or if this financial like was about financial forecasting. So like if I could know exactly how much I'm going to sell, I know it was just for context was for a retail company, right? So it was software for a retail company. So if I know how much I'm going to sell, I know how much I have to buy from my suppliers. So meaning that I know what kind of products, meaning that I know this, and that. So I could kind of generate a lot of different reports. And but in order to do that, I was having like a lot of problems, like stocks that were kind of expiring in some cases, and some other stuff were just staying there, sitting there forever. And I paid a lot of money, and for those stocks. So how do I really get around that? And then he actually showed me after we discussed a lot. He came up with a very good proposal, and actually not really proposal itself, but I mean a small little trial showing a business case and saying, Bruno, this is what you can do with the click of a button. And then from that point on, he was really able to show me the real value that I could get out of that system, out of that software. And that helped me a lot to kind of think about all the things that I could do and that I should not worry about like building that myself. And that would definitely give me a lot of value, not only because of the financial forecast itself, but because I could focus on something else and they would take care of that. And I think that was very, very valuable for me at that moment.
So it seems like the person was asking a lot of, or this sales rep was asking a lot of questions, and he was not only interested in understanding the problem, but also understanding the root cause of the problem, and also how the problem is impacting your basically bottom line, right? How much money is maybe
Absolutely.
lost, and how much revenue is lost, etc.
To be honest, I never really had the feeling that he was a salesperson, like just trying to sell. You know, like, hey, I have to sell. It's like the last day of the month, and I have to close my forecast or whatever. Like, I just had the feeling that he was genuinely, or I don't know how you define genuinely, but he was definitely,
Interested.
yeah, he was interested
Interested.
in everything that I was doing there and my problems. And then he mentioned, like, I understand, I know what you're going through. And then he explained from different customers, like what the other customers go through. So at that point in time, I really realized that he knew what he was going, like he knew what we was talking about. And that gave me a little bit more confidence to say, let's schedule something. Let's
Yeah.
really talk about it because I'm really, really interested to know what the other people are doing actually and how they're solving this specific problem. And we talked a lot about it. And in the end, I realized, I mean, I knew it from the beginning, but in the end, I realized that like actually he was just trying to sell something, and that worked beautifully because we had a very good introduction. We went through all the problems, and we basically try to solve the same problem together. But instead of me building all the things on my own, he just said, well, with a little bit of investment here, you got this, and that, and you can focus on something else. And I was like, that's exactly what I want. And that just worked out, right? So that is something that really stayed in my mind, I would say. And I think the main factor is just that actually in the beginning, like he just showed up with exactly the thing that I was having problem with. So I think it was a perfect timing.
But he was only able to do that because he was that interested and asked you probably a lot of questions and connected also the things that you said with some use cases, customer stories. So he positioned himself as an expert. But let's park that topic for a bit later, so we can maybe also distill what would make for you someone not just like a sales rep, but an actual valuable resource and an expert that you see value in, right? But you were speaking about LinkedIn 14 years ago. Today, LinkedIn is a different beast, right? I don't know about you, but my LinkedIn inbox is blinking like a Christmas tree every morning. I guess for you, it will be the same or even worse. So sellers need to reach out, right? We need to reach out to prospective buyers. We need to do calls or emails or LinkedIn or maybe knock on doors. Maybe someone is doing that still, right? But how many outreach messages, if you would need to estimate, do you get per day or per week?
Wow. Like, to be really honest with you, I think I might have passed like over hundreds of messages a day, actually. Like, there are a
Day.
lot of people trying to sell something out of nowhere, and this becomes like a real challenge, to be honest, to really filter who am I talking with, or actually who is talking to me,
Yeah.
who should I spend the time with to answer the questions. And it's not even like not even bad. Like, I'm not trying to diminish someone or anything like that, but I do not have enough time to go through all the list. So I have to make sure that whoever is writing me has something interesting that I can prioritize and say, okay, that person I'm going to talk to. Of course, I try to answer as much as I can, but whatever it makes sense, right? And there's one little trick that I personally use and that helps me a lot, but I can tell you right away, and I'm sure that a lot of people are going to stop doing that, and I actually ask for that. If you look at my LinkedIn, you're gonna see that I have a small little emoji in first and before my name. But actually, this emoji is my first name, and my last name is my full name, right? So Bruno Bonando is just my last name, and the field last name, and the first name field is just a small little emoji. Why is that? Because there are a lot of automated tools that just say, "Hello, Bruno. How are you doing? I have something specific for you." And actually, when I see that this hello first field, right, first name,
It's the
is
emoji, you know
actually
it's an
the
automation.
emoji, I know 100% sure that that person used any kind of automated tool to reach out to me. So whenever I see the emoji, I just delete, archive, delete, and I don't even read. I don't even know what that is, but I'm not gonna read because I just don't. Right.
Yeah.
And I think this is somehow a way that it helped me to filter out some messages that are just there. And I know that I'm not gonna read them, because if the person didn't really have the time to go through my main problems, or maybe they don't know, but if they know what industry I am, what kind of a work I'm doing, like if they did not have a small little time to go through my profile, understand exactly a little bit about me, why should I talk to them? So I like this personalization in a sense that the person says, bom dia, like that's like good morning in Portuguese, right? And so I know that they read that I'm Brazilian, so this is already something, you know. And then I say, oh, someone said bom dia, like what? And they
Like,
say
how does
my
he
name.
know? Well, wow, who is this person? Maybe I know the person or
Maybe
something
I
like
know the
that, right?
person,
Yeah.
or what are they talking about? And these kind of things, they really stand out for me. Whenever there is somehow I can see some kind of effort into understanding who I am and so on and so forth. So I think this is
Yeah.
definitely a decision point, I would say.
It's maybe a little bit like maybe it's a stupid comparison, but it's a little bit like in dating, right? So if you maybe approach like 100 girls or guys, right, can be both directions on the street, we're just asking, hey, do you want to go for a coffee? Like, what is the effort, right? But maybe if you make a nice ask, you wait for a specific moment, you do your research about this person, you maybe you give them the favorite chocolate or something, right? It shows already an effort that you are genuinely interested and not just about a quick win or quick deal,
I would
basically.
say that it makes the whole difference. It does make the whole difference because once we get into a chat and I know that the person is deeply involved in what they are trying to sell or what they're talking about and going through with my requests, or I don't know, I know that they have the custom experience of, hey Bruno, I really want to talk to you, and not the other way around. Like, Bruno,
Mm,
you are one of my leads that actually reacted to my code message,
exactly.
right? And somehow I have to prioritize, and this is how I do nowadays.
So you mentioned it's a couple of hundred messages per week, hundreds per day.
Sometimes
No
I
one
might,
knows, right?
sometimes a little bit more,
But
sometimes a little bit
but
less.
but let's put it like it's so many messages that you lost that you cannot count them, right? You lost
No,
count, kind of.
yeah.
You mentioned that, okay, first thing that is important for you is personalization. The person took time, but what does it make you? Let's say anything else that would catch your attention or create interest to reply, a part of the personalization.
Then we go to the second topic, which is basically, does it fulfill my needs at some point, right? Because it's not only about people selling something, sometimes it's about other stuff, like people from other countries asking, how did I move abroad? Or some other people, or recruiters saying, Bruno, I have a very amazing job for you, or stuff like that, right? So I have to see in my actual time if I am in need of something, and then whatever is popping up is somehow similar or close to what I'm looking for, then I might engage in a conversation, because it does have to make sense for me, right? And sometimes I think that, oh, the people took so much effort like into trying to understand who I am and so on, to write a nice message, that I usually reply. I say, hey, thank you very much, but we're currently in a situation where we don't need this kind of service and so on. But sometimes this is just not possible, right? So I tend to filter out like by my necessity. And this is usually something that people don't really know, right?
Mm.
Unless they kind of hear podcasts like this, so they know a little bit where I am and what is really needed and so on. Or maybe they see that I'm actually very active in a lot of different groups, so they see that we are sharing some information there and this kind of things. And this kind of approach makes things a little bit easier and faster, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. The message or the outreach must be connected to a problem that you have right now, because if you don't have it right now, it's something that you could invest time in, but you don't have an immediate, value that would solve some specific problem for you, and then it's a waste of time. So I think that the hardest part for a salesperson is, okay, I mean, the first part is the personalization, to put in the effort, but it's the baseline, right? The second level is finding a problem that you currently have, and this cannot be made up. Either you do your research, maybe you had some calls or meetings with people that are working maybe in your reporting line, and they gathered some intelligence about what is important for Bruno, and then they reach out with a specific project, right? Say, hey Bruno, I spoke with this and this person in your organization. It seems like you're working on this forecasting project. We're doing this and that. Let's speak, right? So if I can pinpoint something that you're actually working on right now, that would probably open the door for a meeting with you. But again, that's quite tricky. You cannot find every time with every lead or person or potential buyer something that they are currently right now occupied with, and would, if you come with this solution, they would say, hey, I was waiting for this. Great, let's come with a meeting, right? That's not working like this.
I think that is, you summarize like that in a very good way. I think that is exactly the situation. I would even add one thing more, and it would be basically the amount of pressure that the person tries to get, or the amount of pressure that a person puts in order to get a call scheduled. And that I also don't like, for the reason being that we have a different timing, right? You might be free tomorrow and so on and so forth, but I'm not. And maybe I'm traveling, or I don't know, maybe I'm coming back only next week. So I like when things just flow a little bit easier. Like, for example, you have seen that I have been talking a lot about AI, and then you say you listen to a podcast that I'm actually driving AI in a specific company. And then you say, Bruno, like, I saw that you have been dealing with AI and I have been working with AI product X, Y, Z. Would that be interesting for you? Here are the 3 topics that I cover. If they are interesting, send a message, right? Like something like this that gives me some space to think about, or maybe even to read about. Maybe you
Yeah.
send me a link, or I don't know, like small little summary, something directly to the point. That helps me a lot to not feel pressure, because sometimes there are some people that they just go straight to the point. Hey, I have time tomorrow, 4 p.m. Do you want to talk to me tomorrow, or like Tuesday or Wednesday? And I'm like, no, I'm traveling. Okay, when do you come back? Yeah, like, yeah, next week. Next week when? Monday or Tuesday? Like, I don't know. Like, I didn't even read your message correctly, you know? So these are things that I usually don't like. So yeah, like this personalization, like the problem solving focus, and this professionalism of understanding that everyone, they have their own time, you know. And I think this is important to live it. Like, prepare your area, and I'm gonna come back if this is really interesting. If it is not
Yeah.
interesting, you are also not gonna lose time with me, you know. So I think this goes both ways.
It's kind of about building a relationship with a person. It's building
Absolutely.
trust, and this is not happening within a cold call. It takes time, right? It takes maybe a few messages. It takes maybe a meeting somewhere, maybe a note, maybe a LinkedIn connect, and then steadily investing and being patient and growing that relationship. And this is where I think a lot of things got wrong after the book Challenger Sale. You probably don't know the book, but in the sales space, it's like a big book, the Challenger Sale. And the Challenger Sale basically is saying that people or sellers that are trying to sell based on the relationship are the worst performing sellers. And the best sellers are those that are selling based on, let's say, challenging the customer, bringing insights, which is also true. But I think the Challenger Sale has put people that are focusing a lot on a relationship on, in a very negative light. And what you are saying is that I think trust and relationships cannot be artificially created from nowhere. It takes time and it takes patience. It takes learning, again, not just like in our Insta world where we expect everything with a click of a button.
True that.
Salespeople, I think today, a lot of them, they expect the same with the customers, right? I send out 100 emails, I get a cold call, I do a cold call and ask immediately for the appointment. Having more space to breathe for everyone and invest in the time, I think it's super important. So I think that's a good takeaway already. I would like to come back to the first thing that you actually said. So you were telling that story about this sales rep of this forecasting software company, and you mentioned that you never had the feeling that it's an actual salesperson. You had more the feeling like it was like a consultant, business partner, something like that, like someone on an eye-to-eye level, someone that you can trust and that is consulting you and showing you what could be a potential solution for you. So let's take this one step further. Let's say you booked that meeting with this person or with this sales rep. What would be traits and characteristics of a person that would make this person for you a trusted advisor and not just a person that is trying to sell you on something?
If you're talking about like the person itself, right? Like the person themselves, I believe that the person should act basically as a consultant, like to my specific problem. Just if you try to make it very, very simple, try to figure out like you're trying to buy a TV, for example, like, but you don't know anything about TV, but you know what you want, right? If you go to a store, you want to have someone that can understand what are you trying to solve in your living room, right? Maybe it's a TV for the living room. Maybe it's a TV for your
Bedroom.
bedroom or I
For
don't
your
know.
podcast studio.
Podcast studio, exactly, you know? So there are multiple different uses there, and I think it would be interesting if I could get a little bit of guidance, like, hey, I want to do this, like, what could I use here? And the person kind of guides me through all the possibilities, all the things that we can do, and so on and so forth. When I have this feeling, I have the feeling that I can count on that person, that we're basically just sharing a problem or a situation, right? And a necessity, let's put it like this. And on the other hand, I have someone that understands that necessity so well that they can point me in the right direction, right? And this is exactly what I value the most. Because if the person just trying to sell me like the most expensive TV, it's not the person that I'm looking for. And if I have the feeling that the person is just trying to push me something, I tend to just go away. Like, okay, this is just not for me.
Maybe I can ask one question. Maybe it's too specific a question, but what would be the specific action and behavior that this person would need to do or take to position themselves as this consultant versus seller?
I think they have to understand one major thing. Every single deal, it's not a deal if both people are not the winners. This is how I visualize the thing. So there's no such a thing like I won a deal. No, you didn't. Because if you won, means that someone lost. And if someone lost, this deal is not good. Right? So in my head, if the person that is selling me something knows that both of us want to win this deal, both of us are like in a win-win situation. If we have that in mind, we're good to go. And if I have that feeling that the person is not you against me in a negotiation, it's more like we have a problem here. Let's both of us solve that. And then you're going to offer me something that I'm going to be very happy with because this is going to definitely solve my problem. And you're going to be very happy because, well, I'm buying the solution and you're selling that to me and you're concluding your proposal. So for me, that is one of the most important things. So if I have the feeling that the person is going to this direction, I'm sold, right? So this is for me very, very important.
That's beautiful. I need to say it's beautiful because you're saying like you cannot win a deal and you can only lose a deal, but you cannot win a deal. You can only make a deal because a deal it's a win-win situation, as you said, right? It's like what are you getting of value out for yourself together as a group, as a team with this representative of this other company?
100%.
Yeah. So in the sales linguistic, the terms we use are won or lost, right? We're using this terminology, and I think language fascinates me because the words we use are shaping our thoughts and our behaviors. It's our mindset. So if I say, hey, I won the deal, it implies subconsciously, not consciously, but subconsciously, it implies, hey, someone else has lost. Or maybe I have even won over the customer because I've pushed him over the edge, kind of, And he did something that he was not completely sure about, but kind of I maybe push them over with my sales process or engagement. And what you say is that for you, a consultant creates this atmosphere, a sales consultant, let's put it like it, creates this atmosphere of, okay, it's a win-win, right? And how I like to approach such situations and how I like to create this situation of a win-win is, I think it all comes down not just to the soft parts, that the trust and the relationship, but also there must be a solid business case, right? I need to be able, after a few meetings, maybe like after a workshop or something, show you, okay, Bruno, right? You are losing X amount of money, or there is some costs that are created with this problem, like 100,000 euros per month you're losing out, right? On the other side, if we do this and this and that, based on the experience we have with this customer where we did this, they had a very similar problem, we can increase the revenue or reduce the cost or improve the efficiency by 30%, which would mean 150,000. So at the end, for you, it's a win because you get more out of the, you get more back than the cost of the product, right? Is the cost that you are paying, the investment, is it less or is it more than the actual quantified value that you get out of the solution? Because you won't be investing in a software, for example, that costs you 50K, but the measurable, quantifiable impact that you are solving is just 10K, right? It doesn't make sense, right?
No, not at all. Like,
so
just to continue, sorry to interrupt, but like what you mentioned is very, very important. Like, basically what we're trying to find is like a positive ROI, like the return of investment. And the KPI for that can be different depending on the level that you talk. If you talk about financial cash flow, it might be one thing. If you're just investing for saving some money, so it might be the opposite. Or if you're investing for speed in a development process, it's something else. So you got to find your exactly KPI that is going to give you a positive return of investment, and then you go forward. So that's why I usually say, I don't care how much it costs, as long as it gives me a positive ROI. And this is basically where I go.
That's a good quote. I need to write it down. I don't care how much it costs, as long as it gives me a positive ROI. So next time, any seller that is listening to this podcast will nail you to that quote. Bruno, but you said as long as you have a positive ROI, you will buy this. Okay, no, just joking. So that's very interesting, and I think every listener should maybe wind back 1 minute, re-listen to I think the last 5 minutes even, and write down that quote, because I think there's so much depth to what you said, and I think so many people are trying to sell more based on vague facts or some stories without some metrics. So you cannot do a decision. You can't do a decision, right? And the next topic I wanted to dive with you or delve into you with you is decision criteria and decision process, right? So I'm in sales. I have a lot of sales engagements throughout the week and month and quarter. And one thing that we are told as salespeople, or there's this unwritten rule kind of, is that you need to have metrics. You need to have quantifiable metrics, because customers are basing their decisions on some metrics. What are for you in reality as a tech buyer, right? But a decision maker of tech factors that you consider when evaluating IT and software apart of that ROI thing? What are the other criteria that you are evaluating in the process?
I think there are a lot of things that are on the plate. Of course, like ROI is just one of them, but there are a lot of things that we have on the plate. I usually, let's talk about the vendor itself, right? Then we can go to the software. But like, if I talk about the vendor, I want to make sure that whatever I'm bringing on the table is a reliable company. Like the reputation and reliability, they have to be on the place, and I think this needs to be taken into consideration. I would even put it into 3 different categories, like everything that happened in the past and present and future. Like if I see the vendor from the past. I want to see the reputation and reliability, like how reliable they are actually. How do they go with their customers? References, things that they have already done in the past, and what were the results, what were the impacts that they created for that specific customer, maybe in the same industry, and so on. And how do they deal with all the support and service? I think this is also very important for me, like to understand that, I mean, in the end, a very good customer support is really essential, and understanding the quality, the availability, and how do they deal with that, and how do they handle with issues and SLAs and everything around that. I really want to understand from the past, from what they have done until now. From today's moment, I also want to see if the software that they are offering to me is actually viable. Like the functionality that is there is exactly meeting my specific needs. Does it integrate very well with the existing systems? Yes, no. Like we just have to have like a very good balance and fit requirements, whether this is going to be good or not. And if everything that they are supplying, that they're offering, is also related to security and compliance, right? So all the security issues and everything that we are like with the whole GDPR situation in Europe, for example, are they compliant? Yes or no? Like I have to understand whether this is how important that is in my company and how that important is for the other company. And then we just mentioned for the present of the cost and the whole ROI numbers, not only from a money perspective, but also from a time perspective, from integration perspective, from all the levels, not only from a strategic, from a financial, but also from a developer perspective. If we're talking about software implementation, like how long does it take to integrate and this kind of things, I need to know whether this is there or not, right? And to understand a little bit more about the future, let's say that I pass all these things in the future, I also want to understand like how future-proof this solution is. Like what happens if this company that is offering me this amazing product goes out of market? Like what happens to the company, especially if I am working, like in this case now, like I'm working for a very huge retailer, one of the biggest in Europe. Like I want to make sure that this solution is going to be long and there, and we are safe for the next whatever number of years that the contract requires, right? And I have to make sure that this happens, and also to understand a little bit more on the future roadmap, like and innovation, what they're thinking about the future, how they can bring like new stuff, if they're like really up to date in everything. So if I kind of put this present, like the past, present, and future into a landscape where I can basically see everything, I would say yes or no, right? But yeah, so basically these are the things that I quickly take a look, and then we start going deeper, like with all the respective departments actually.
So I would say, so you mentioned it's time of implementation or cost of implementation, it's customer service, it's integration possibilities, and one very important thing is future readiness. Maybe it's the wrong word, but how reliable will the company still exist maybe in 3, 5, 10 years from now, right? So those are a couple of things. So interesting question then to you. I mean, I read an interesting statistic. Every day, I think there are 300 software companies founded globally. Crazy. The space, especially the IT and tech space, is so crowded. You have for everything, you have like 10, 20, 30 different solutions. And everyone is coming up with new fancy AI, Gen AI applications and whatsoever. Now, let's say I'm a startup, or I'm a company that is no longer in a startup, it's like in a scale-up phase. And I don't have this track record of huge corporate reference use cases, and there is this, let's say, a risk of, hey, will this company be still around in 5 years? It's like they're doing well. They're 3 to 4 years on the market. They have some customers. So what could like a scale-up company that's like bring like a really innovative product to the market do to help you with this gut feeling of, hey, wow, will they still be around in 5 years? How should a seller in such a not like, working for Amazon or for Google, it's quite, it's easy, right? You have this huge company, this huge story around yourself. But what if I'm selling like for a company that no one knows?
I think this is a very good question, but in the end, it's always a question of risk, right? How much do I want to run this risk? Like, am I ready to run this risk? Do I want to go forward with that? Yes or no? Do we want to become partners and make that happen? Yes or no, right? And normally, if I say yes to a specific problem, let's say you came up with a very good solution to something that I have, and it's very innovative, which happens because now we are in a new era, let's say like this, where a lot of things are just popping up, like you said, like hundreds of companies been founded like every single day, month, I don't know. We need to be very careful, but we have to keep in mind that we have to move fast and we have to make decisions fast. And we have to understand the risks where we are. So if I see a very potential future in a specific application solution, I would definitely put in the balance and understand that the value that it can bring, it's bigger than the risk of not working. If I can visualize that and quantify that, however that makes sense, I would start applying that solution, but of course, not as a standalone solution in a whole overall company, but maybe I get like a smaller company from the group, or maybe
Yeah.
I get a small section of the group, and then I start applying there. Like we do a small little POC, make it happen. And then we always have to have understandings of what do we do if that company runs out of money and they have to stop it. So what kind of a reaction do you want to take? What kind of a solution do you want to make in order to prevent that? And if they do, you cannot prevent that, but how do you tackle that situation? If you have that business case all over, like really well defined, you can go slowly and then build the trust with the time, right? But this is not something that I do alone. Like whenever I implement something that is extremely new, it's always something that you go back in the board, you talk to the investors, and you have to have all the backed up situation, because you cannot just ruin, or you cannot put a company at a risk because of a third party company that just founded, and I don't know, a couple of
Yes.
years later they went bankrupt, right? And which, by the way, you mentioned a lot of companies are being founded, but actually, and I forgot the numbers, but I think it's around 80% of the companies they go away like in less than 5 years.
Even more,
So
I think. Maybe it's even more than 90%, I think. So yeah,
so it's just like a
true.
lot, and so we have to be really careful with that. But it's always a matter of like, let's take the risk and go step by step and see where it takes.
So what is the potential upside with the risk that you are taking into account, right? Is the upside big enough that it justifies the risk? And in that situation, if I'm a sales rep for a company that is not that well known, is maybe out there for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, am I able to build that again, this future ROI with you based on actual facts? So yeah, potentially in 3 years, you could have an ROI of 500%, but potentially in 5 years, the company is maybe not existing at all. So a lot of money implementation was wasted. And I think one step back even to the last thing you said about all the things like integration and time of investment in the integration and customer service, and is it meeting on a technical level all the criterias? What must be in place, I feel, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is like a proper technical validation, like that the company invests properly time, like maybe half a day, doing like a workshop with your team, understanding in detail how is your current setup looking like, how is your future setup looking like, and how can the solution actually meet all the criteria, and which criteria is the solution maybe not able to meet. Because I also see a lot of times companies and salespeople try to make everything perfect, right? So yeah, we can do everything, like we can do. But I always think that buyers must be a bit skeptical if it sounds too good to be true, kind of, right? I think it's I think it should be. I think it creates more trust if you say, "Hey, so Bruno, look, you have like those 10 criterias. Out of those, 7 we can meet like by doing X, Y, Z. The 8th one kind of half, but those last 2 we cannot do because of X, Y, Z." I think it would create more trust in the long term and eventually speed up the deal instead of saying, "Hey, yeah, hey, no problem, we can do this, we can do everything," right? How do you see it?
100%. I think in the end, both of us want to have whatever kind of solution that you're proposing, both of us want to have it implemented. So both of us have a challenge. So both of us want to have that challenge overcome. So how do we really do that? And then if I say, okay, here are the problems that I have this structure, we have other topics going on, we have like not much, I don't know, capacity to focus on that. And then if you realize that capacity is a problem on my side to do standard work, and then you say, no, but actually we have a budget of X, Y, Z that we can actually offer this implementation for you so you don't have to worry about that, so we can speed up things. So if you know the problem that I'm facing right now and you can solve that, it's very difficult for me to say no because we know exactly what we need to do to tackle those problems, and then we just do it. We just make it happen, and I think sometimes understanding the couple of first steps, it's not about money, it's not about selling, it's just about making it work. And if we make that, like the future is definitely, I don't like saying that it's guaranteed, right? But we are in a very, very good track, I would say.
What do you mean by to make that? What do you specifically mean by to make that?
I mean, like, just imagine that we are like in a situation that I just mentioned. So we have a situation that is a blocker for us. I cannot move forward, right? I need someone, I need like more capacity, and I am in a situation where I cannot go forward. And I say, hey, Jerry, thank you very much for the offer. I think this is very great. But the people that I have right now that are like, let's say, people from the platform team, they're not going to be able to implement this right now because they're only going to be able to do that within 2 months' time. And then you say, but what is actually needed? Because I have the people that can do that job for you. And then your developers can pick that up. And I say, oh, if you have it, that would be actually great. And then we just make that happen because we are actually not trying to find a very short-term solution. We are always thinking a long-term solution. And if we have the long-term solution in mind, we're going to definitely overcome that. So if you help me here and I'll help you there, like we're definitely going to go forward. So this is what I mean. Like if we have like this long-term mindset, we can definitely get things done.
Yeah, but like, again, it needs some, like the basis of everything, the fundament is there must be a problem in place that you have on your plate right now that you need to solve, because if you don't solve it, something bad will happen in the future. It has some specific impact on your people, on the business, on your cost, on the time to market that you need to solve right now. If this is in place, then you can start building that case. But I think a lot of times what I see is that salespeople try to fix problems that customers don't care about.
That's also something. And that's why I say, like, it goes back to one of the first items. If you show me, like, all the things that you work with, all the solutions, all the things that you have in mind, based on a specific problem that I might have mentioned somewhere else, I'm going to come to you with a specific situation that I want to solve, rather than opposite, where you say, Bruno, I heard that you are doing this, so I have this, this, and that, and please talk to me about this, this, and that. Like, you don't have to force any sales. This is going to happen automatically if you give me the opportunity to say exactly what I am going through. So, like, I usually tell, like, my people, like, just relax, just relax. Go there, get the things done, and come back and do what you believe that it's good for you. So if you have like the transparency in mind, if you respect this time from each other, like everyone they work async, right? You send a message today, I read it tomorrow. So if we have that like understanding, I think things go actually much easier and smooth. And I think
100%.
sometimes this is exactly what is missing.
Yeah, because people are getting impatient these days. That's the issue, and I see it in the sales world as well. Buna, I would like to jump one. I would like to jump to the very beginning of our conversation again. And this sales rep of this company that you mentioned as your most memorable sales encounter stuck with me a little bit. And we what we try to do in sales is, of course, build relationships. I think good salespeople also try to build relationships with people that are important, that can drive decisions together with them in the company, right? So we try to build a relationship on executive level, and things that we do is, for example, inviting customers to a dinner or a lunch. Just have that also personal interaction. So two quick questions about this. First, with whom would you go for a dinner or lunch? What does this person need to do? So you invest the time here, actually go for dinner or lunch with this person. And second, what would you expect in such a dinner or lunch situation with a sales rep?
That's a very good question. um, I think in order to really have a real lunch, like having lunch with someone would definitely take some good relationship, I would say. Like this relation where I know the person beyond the problems that we are trying to solve. I'm not talking about like the biggest friend ever, right? Like, because friendship is one thing, work is something else.
Yeah.
But I really mean about like having this good relation where we talk openly and freely about stuff, a little bit more relaxed, not just talking about numbers and what we are trying to solve and conquer the world, but rather like a little bit more relaxed. Maybe you know that the person is, I don't know, like a soccer fan, right? And then the person comes from Spain and they just won. And then like you bring something about that and you say, oh, let's go to, I don't know, to a tacos place, like something that is really interesting. And then you say, oh, let's do that. I think this is going to be very interesting. Or I don't know, something that kind of connects the person and that you can say, okay, this person is interesting to talk to beyond business. And business is just coming naturally to it. So I think this is important, because otherwise, yeah, there are some explicit business dinners, lunch, and so on. But if I am willing to do like a very open dinner, let's say it's the first one, right, or lunch or something, like I want that person to be a little bit more relaxed, like in terms of being able to talk about general stuff and then going to the topic slowly, and then we can start discussing what is the real output that we're trying to get there. And this is the main thing. Having an understanding of what kind of output do we want from that dinner, from that lunch, is also very essential. Not just eating for eating, right? Like we need to create a bond. We need to create a reason why that connection needs to be built over a lunch, because we could have just a remote call, right? Or we could just meet in the office for something. Like, why does it need to be over lunch? So if it is over lunch, I believe and assume that it's a little bit more relaxed, that we can just build up on topics and go from there.
So don't take out the laptop and show the presentation on the dinner or lunch table.
No. Get it started first.
Gotta start with maybe a glass of red wine. So you said something interesting that stuck with me there. You said, what makes this person interesting a part of just the business aspect? So the personality, the person behind the representative. Are you capable of building a relationship? Are you able to build a connection with a person?
Yeah, I think in the end, that's exactly it. Like, do you build a connection with that person somehow, right? And I don't mean like on a friendship, like best friends forever. I just mean like some kind of connection, something like that we just kind of I don't know,
Mm.
discuss about,
Yeah.
like I'm very interested into business, and then you are also interested in negotiation and topics like this, and then you mention a book that you have read about it and that is really interesting, and you want to share some informations that you got over that, and to set up a call for that, sometimes it doesn't really make sense, but if we do that over a lunch, hey, we want to go through the over that contract, but I'm gonna come from whatever city to that whatever city, and I'm gonna be there for lunch. Do you want to have lunch? And then we can discuss like the book that you read. I think that was really interesting, and then we can do that, and then we go into the contract business and whatsoever. So this kind of a connection, I think it's really good.
Mm. Yeah, I think, and in some aspects, it reminds me also with some parallels between you and me, right? So I think we also connected around all those podcasting and video topics that were also topics we genuinely like to discuss with each other aside of that business part. And I think that made the bond between you and me stand out. In contrast to so many other business contacts that I had, right? So, and that's why I want to say thank you and I appreciate you for that, Bruno. So,
Thank you.
maybe just one like a final question to wrap up the conversation, right? So there were a lot of interesting points. Usually I try to come to an end after 30 minutes, but this is so interesting that I thought, okay, let's run with this. Are there any final thoughts or insights that you would like to leave the listeners with as the buyer to a salesperson?
If I could say something like to all the salespeople out there, it's like, first of all, do your homework, like research the company, industry, everything around that. I think this is very important to really understand what are the possibilities that the person that you're trying to sell something are going through, like what kind of problems they're going through and this kind of things. Second, I think you mentioned only one, but I'm just going to say whatever comes to my mind, is pick the language of what the person is expecting to hear. If you're talking to a business executive, talk about business executive stuff. If you're talking to a developer, the conversation is completely different. It's about different KPIs. They're looking for different values. They're looking for different things. If you're talking like to the finance people, they're looking for different topics. So make sure that you know your audience, so you can have a smooth conversation. Because if you change audience there, you're probably gonna get like not very very good responses, or maybe none at all. We just mentioned build relationships. I think this is very, very important, because in the end, we are people trying to solve a problem, and we need like a consultant next to us. We need someone that helps us to solve problems and move forward. And I think this is very good if we have like someone that is looking for building relationships and not just transactions. So focus on that. And I think this is good. And in the end, just summarizing everything, like always be solution oriented. And that's it.
Build relationships, not just transactions. So I have two main quotes of you. I don't care about the cost, only about the ROI. Build relationships, not just transactions.
This is
So
what is
mic
important.
drop.
That's true.
Mic drop. Really, like, yeah, I really appreciate it, Bruno. Like, really, thanks for being here. And before I ask my last question, if anyone that has listened to you and to this episode, and by now I have quite a substantial audience, what is the best way to connect with you, not necessarily in a sales encounter, but like connect with you as a person? If people want to find more about Bruno and what you are doing, what is the best gate and door where people can approach you and also find more about the person behind yourself?
Wow, there's so many things, right? Like I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. You can also go to my website, bruno.digital. I think there you can have some good information about myself, and you can know a little bit about myself, my history behind why I'm here and why I'm in Europe. So I think this would be definitely one thing. And just like I said, I'm very open. Like I try to reach out to everyone. I try to be very responsive on LinkedIn and so on. But in the end, just be yourself, be honest, be transparent, and never, ever, ever do automated things like this automated code calls, code messages, and everything. And by the way, I really want to mention something. Like this is maybe it just goes for me, but I really don't like when people call me directly on my phone. I know that we have like normally like these tools that get your number and so on, but I've changed my number a couple of times because
Yeah.
people do call me during meetings, like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock. Like they just call right away and trying to sell something directly, and then goes against all the things that we have been talking about, like building relationship and so on. They go directly. How are you dealing with analytics in your company? And I'm like, who are you?
Like I'm in a meeting, like, who are you asking me that question?
Exactly, and then it end up like in a situation where I basically just automatically block numbers that are not listed in my contact list, because then I just don't get those calls anymore. So, yeah, I think this is not how to reach me.
But you mentioned it. You did mention it. You also have a podcast. And people can find a podcast on Bruno Digital as well. Bruno.digital.
Bruno.digital, they can find a podcast where I run things about digital transformation with the leaders of digital
And the
transformation.
name of the podcast is
Bruno Digital.
Bruno Digital. Bruno Digital. So hit up Bruno Digital if you are interested. And if you're selling technology, if you're selling software, IT, AI, and you want to find out more about technology, how also tech thought leaders like Bruno think about technology. And he's also inviting interesting guests that have a lot to say about those things. Hit up Bruno's podcast, bruno.digital. I will put a link to Bruno's podcast in the show notes down below. So you can hear more about what Bruno has to say, not just about sales, but about actual technology. So definitely take a look at that podcast. Bruno, last question. Every guest gets like a final. Usually I do like 5 short questions, but because we spoke already so long, it's just one question. And it's a sentence that I would like you to finish. And the sentence starts with, there is no deal without...
Win-win situation. I actually answered that in the beginning. So for me, it's just perfect. No deal without win-win situation.
There's no deal without a win-win situation. Mic drop. Bruno, it was a pleasure. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you very much,
Thanks for
Gary.
being that open, that transparent, putting all the energy, the effort now at 7:38 into the microphone, into your home studio. I'm looking forward to meet you soon for a lunch where we speak about not business, something else. Yeah, maybe podcasting. I'm more than happy to do that. Next, I'll hit you up when I'm in Cologne. I wish you a wonderful evening. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. Thank you
and
very
see
much.
You soon.
And we keep in touch and see you soon.
Wow, what a conversation! So this was Bruno Bonando. He's a tech lead for the Rewe Group and responsible for Rewe Group's stores across the whole of Europe. And man, so many interesting insights. So I hope you got a lot out of it. Maybe I would even re-listen to this episode and take notes. I took a couple of notes here. I think really building the relationship, doing your research, asking with a soft call to action, not directly jumping into a suggestion for a meeting, but building maybe up that momentum, asking, hey, would this be of interest to you before you ask, hey, let's meet tomorrow for a meeting at 2 p.m., right? Give people time to breathe. People, and especially executives, don't care so much about the cost. They care about the ROI. So Bruno said it, right? I don't care about the cost. I care about the return on investment. And really just be different than others. Don't do those automations things where you do more stupid things faster. I think people and salespeople today are relying on just quantity. You need to have the quality as well. You need to be there at the right point in time. You need to be there at the right point in time. And speaking about the problem that is currently relevant for the customer, and this precedes a lot of discovery and research within. So, wow, what can I say? I hope you got a lot of value out of that one. I was looking for the conversation with Bruno for a long time. If you haven't done already, subscribe to the Deal Podcast on Spotify, Apple, or on YouTube. Hit the bell to get notified once there are new episodes out. Every Wednesday, there is a new episode on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Also, leave me a comment, maybe a little review, 5 stars on Spotify, send some love, and thanks. See you again next week in the Deal Podcast.